Billionaire walked in. On his wife, attacking the nanny, what he did next, left everyone speechless. What happens when a billionaire walks in on his wife attacking the nanny? What if the woman you trusted most, the one you thought you knew, turns out to be nothing but a liar? This is the story of Alex Carter, and it all changed on one fateful Tuesday when he came home early. But what happens next will leave you speechless. Stay with us to see how the truth unfolds and what Alex does next. Trust me, you won't want to miss it. Make sure to share your thoughts in the comment section, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. The sound of gravel crunched under Alex Carter's tires as he pulled into his mansion's driveway. His mind was occupied, as usual, with the billion-dollar deals he was orchestrating. Yet, something about today felt different. Maybe it was the weight of success. Maybe it was the realization that he had everything and nothing. His empire, 52 companies, and $3 billion in the bank, none of it felt fulfilling anymore. His thoughts had started drifting toward his family, his wife, Sarah, his children, his nanny, Maria. As he walked toward the front door, the quiet hum of the house was interrupted by a strange sound. Screaming, it came from inside. His wife's voice, high-pitched, shrill. He froze. His hand lingered on the doorknob. Something was wrong. He'd never heard Sarah sound like this before. What was happening in his own home? He pushed the door open, just a crack. The scene that met his eyes was almost too much to take in. Sarah was pacing the marble floor of the foyer, her face contorted in rage. Maria, the nanny, was backed up against the wall, clutching a baby monitor in her trembling hands. "You incompetent fool!" Sarah screamed. "I found my children playing alone by the pool." "Do you understand how dangerous that is?" "What if they had drowned?" Maria tried to defend herself, her voice cracking with panic. "Mrs. Carter, I was feeding the baby upstairs. The older children were supposed to be—" But Sarah wasn't listening. With one sharp movement, she slapped the baby monitor from Maria's hands, sending it crashing to the floor. Supposed to be! Supposed to be! The room seemed to close in on Alex as he stood frozen in the doorway. His mind raced. Who is this woman? This wasn't the Sarah he knew, the woman he married, the mother of his children. No, this wasn't Sarah. This was a stranger. Alex stepped forward, his voice steady but full of anger, controlled rage beneath the surface. "Sarah," she turned. A smile instantly replaced her fury. It was too smooth, too rehearsed. "Alex, darling, you're home early," she cooed. We were just discussing the children's schedule." Her smile was as fake as her words. Alex's eyes flicked over to Maria, whose tear-streaked face spoke volumes. "Maria, are you all right?" Alex asked, his voice softening. Maria wiped her tears quickly, nodding. "Yes, Mr. Carter, I'm fine. Excuse me." She hurried out of the room, leaving Alex alone with Sarah, who was now playing the role of the loving, attentive wife. But Alex wasn't fooled. He wasn't blind to the mask Sarah wore, not anymore. "I heard everything, Sarah," he said, his voice cold. Her smile faltered, but only for a second. Then, just like that, the mask was back in place. "Everything?" she laughed, her voice light. "You're being dramatic, Alex. I barely raised my voice. Maria is just so sensitive." Alex stared at her, a tightness in his chest he couldn't shake. He didn't care about her excuses, not anymore. He had to know more. He had to understand what was happening in his own home. Later that night, Alex sat alone in his study. The soft hum of his laptop was the only sound in the room, but his mind wasn't on business. It was on the scene he had just witnessed, the anger, the cruelty. He opened a new browser window and searched for a solution. Something told him that what had happened with Maria wasn't the only secret Sarah had been hiding. With a steady hand, Alex installed hidden cameras throughout the house. He'd let Sarah believe everything was fine, let her continue the act. He wasn't blind anymore. He wasn't going to sit idly by while she destroyed everything he had, everything they had built. Over the next few days, Alex watched. He watched as Sarah accidentally spilled hot coffee on Maria's hand. He watched as Maria, burned and hurting, was ordered to clean up the mess without any sympathy from Sarah. He watched as Sarah called Maria into the children's playroom, snapping at Emma for no reason other than to assert her control. And then, Alex saw something that made his blood run cold. Maria, on the phone with her mother, lied. Lied about how well she was treated. Her mother, who was dying of cancer, had no idea the truth of what was happening, and neither did Alex. Until now. Alex sat in silence, the weight of everything crashing down on him. The footage, the lies, the manipulation. But there was one thing he didn't know yet, one final piece to the puzzle, and it was going to shatter everything he thought he knew about his wife. What was Sarah really hiding? And more importantly, what would Alex do when the truth finally came to light? What would you do if the person you loved turned out to be a stranger? Would you stand up for what's right, even if it meant losing everything? Think you know what happens next? Stay tuned, because this billionaire's life is about to unravel in ways he never imagined. Make sure to share your thoughts in the comment section, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. What happens when a billionaire starts digging into the secrets of his own home? Alex Carter wasn't just any businessman. He was a titan of industry, a man who built his empire from the ground up. But when he installed hidden cameras in his own mansion, he unlocked a world that shattered everything he thought he knew about his wife, his family, and his life. The first night after Sarah's outburst, Alex lay in bed staring at the ceiling, consumed by a sense of dread he couldn't shake. He had heard the anger in Sarah's voice. He had seen the venom in her eyes when she spoke to Maria. But was it just a one-time blow-up? Or was there something darker lurking beneath the surface? The next day, while Sarah was out shopping, Alex set the plan in motion. He had already researched how to set up hidden cameras. The technology was simple enough to use, but what did it capture? That would be far from simple. He didn't tell Maria. He didn't tell anyone. Because what if he was wrong? What if he was just imagining things? The thought gnawed at him. But when he recalled Sarah's cold, dismissive attitude toward Maria, the lies, the cruelty, he couldn't ignore it any longer. The first footage he watched was in the kitchen. It was early. The sun was barely peeking through the windows. Maria was cleaning up as usual when Sarah walked in, coffee in hand. She didn't greet Maria. She didn't ask how the kids were. Instead, she tipped the coffee over, on purpose. It wasn't just an accident. The way Sarah moved, her sharp, deliberate actions told a different story. Sarah smirked as Maria clutched her burned hand, scrambling to clean up the mess. "Oh, how clumsy of you," Sarah said, her voice dripping with mock sympathy. "I hope you're not too busy to clean that up." Maria, her face pale, winced as the hot liquid burned her skin. She quickly ran to the sink, trying to keep her composure, but it was clear the pain wasn't just physical. Who was this woman? Alex sat there, watching the footage, rage building in his chest. The woman he married, the woman who was supposed to be the mother of his children, was treating Maria like nothing more than an object, a servant. He couldn't stop watching. A few days later, Alex watched more footage. It was a Thursday afternoon. The children were playing in the living room. Emma, his 5-year-old daughter, had scraped her knee. She ran to Maria, crying, looking for comfort. "Tia Maria, I fell," Emma cried. Maria knelt, brushing her daughter's hair from her face, comforting her. "Shh, mi amor, let me see. You're so brave." Just then, Sarah appeared in the doorway, her face like stone. "Emma, come here now," she barked. Emma hesitated for a moment, looking back at Maria, but with a firm tug, Sarah yanked her by the arm, dragging her across the room. "Maria is not your family. She's the help, understand?" Emma's eyes filled with tears as she nodded meekly. "She's the help." The words echoed in Alex's mind, twisting something inside him. His daughter was scared of her own mother. The realization hit him like a punch in the gut. Alex's hand clenched into a fist as he watched the footage. What had Sarah done to his children? How had he missed this? Alex's mind raced. This wasn't just a case of a bad temper. This was something deeper, something far more dangerous. He needed answers, and he needed them fast. The next day, when Maria was on a call with her mother, Alex couldn't look away. The camera caught Maria sitting on the edge of her bed, trying to hide the bruises on her wrist as she spoke in hushed tones. "Mama, I'm sending more money next week for your medicine," Maria said, her voice cracking. Maria's mother, the only person who seemed to care for her, didn't know the full story. "Mija, you sound tired." Are they treating you well? Her mother asked, the concern clear in her voice. Maria's smile was forced as she lied, the tears threatening to fall. See, Mama, they're very kind. I'm blessed. But Alex could see through her lies. He saw the pain, the exhaustion. He saw the fear in Maria's eyes when she looked at her wrist, the same wrist that had been bruised just hours earlier. But what could he do? He wasn't sure. He wasn't sure of anything anymore. It wasn't until the 7th day that Alex uncovered the final blow. He was in his office, going through documents, when he stumbled upon something unexpected. It was Sarah's credit card statement, buried deep among the stacks of financial reports. Alex stared at the numbers, his pulse quickening. Underground casino. 47,000, another 63,000, 112,000 in one night. The numbers blurred together, but what caught his eye wasn't just the gambling. It was the pattern. It was the lavish, reckless spending, the kind of behavior Sarah had always managed to hide. $847,000 in a single month. But that wasn't all. There was more. Alex opened another file, Sarah's personal journal. His fingers shook as he flipped through the pages. There it was, in black and white. Hook the billionaire. Play the perfect wife for 5 years, divorce with half, finally be free. The words felt like a punch in his gut. This was it. This was what it had all been about. He had been played. Alex closed the laptop slowly. His mind was spinning. Sarah had been pretending this whole time, pretending to love him, pretending to be a family. Everything had been a lie. The weight of the truth crashed down on him. Everything he had built, his life, his empire, his family, was built on deceit. Sarah wasn't who she had claimed to be. She wasn't the loving wife. She wasn't a caring mother. She had been using him for everything he was worth, and now it was all falling apart. Alex knew what he had to do. He couldn't let this go on. He couldn't let her destroy everything. What would you do if you found out your whole life, your whole marriage, was based on a lie? Would you confront the person you trusted most, or would you walk away? Stay tuned, because Alex Carter's life is about to take a turn no one saw coming. And when the truth finally comes out, no one will be left untouched. What happens when everything you thought you knew comes crashing down, when the woman you trusted most turns out to be nothing but a master manipulator? And when the truth comes to light, can you even begin to rebuild what's been destroyed? It all came to a head at breakfast. The air in the mansion felt thick with tension, every word unspoken, every glance filled with unspoken judgment. The children were unusually quiet, their eyes darting nervously between their parents. Sarah, sitting at the table with her perfect smile, was oblivious to the storm brewing just beneath the surface. Alex sat across from her, his mind still racing from the footage he'd seen, the lies he'd uncovered. His hands were steady, but his insides felt like they were twisted in knots. He could feel the weight of the last few days pressing on him, and he knew that today would change everything. "Emma, sweetheart," Alex said, his voice calm but firm. "Come here for a second." The 5-year-old slowly approached, hesitating for just a moment. She tugged at her sleeve, hiding it nervously, but Alex's eyes had already caught sight of the bruises, the faint round imprints of fingers still fresh against her pale skin. "Emma." Alex's voice softened as he gently rolled up her sleeve, revealing the marks. "Who did this?" A cold silence fell. Sarah's eyes snapped to her daughter, her smile faltering for a second before she quickly masked it. "It's nothing, Alex," Sarah snapped, standing up abruptly. "Children fall, you know that." But Alex wasn't listening. He wasn't going to let this slide any longer. "No, Sarah, it's nothing." His gaze never left Emma, whose eyes were wide with fear. "Emma, did someone hurt you?" The little girl swallowed hard, looking back at Sarah. Her lips quivered before she whispered, "I asked for Tia Maria when I was scared, and Mommy said, I'm stupid for loving the help. She grabbed me." Alex's heart broke. The betrayal was palpable, a wound so deep he wasn't sure it would ever heal, but he couldn't back down, not now. "Sarah," Alex's voice dropped, low and cold, "you're not just hurting the nanny, you're hurting our children." Sarah, once so confident, now stood frozen. Her practiced smile was gone, replaced by a flush of anger. "Children lie," she hissed. "You know that, Alex. This is nothing." "No," Alex's tone turned hard, cutting through her protests. You lie, Sarah. Alex stood, reaching for his phone, his fingers trembling as he clicked on the footage. The camera feed from earlier in the week flashed on the screen. Sarah's face drained of color as the evidence played out. Every cruel word, every cold gesture, every act of manipulation was there for her to see. I've heard enough, Alex said, his voice stone cold. It's over. The room was dead silent. Alex had no words left for Sarah. No more excuses, no more pretending. The truth had been laid bare, and there was no going back. He turned to Maria, who had quietly stepped into the room, her face full of nervous uncertainty. Maria, Alex said softly, his voice now full of empathy. You don't need to stay in this toxic environment anymore. Maria's eyes filled with tears, but she quickly wiped them away. She had always been the quiet one, the one who didn't speak up. But now, with everything unraveling, she knew that staying silent was no longer an option. As the reality of the situation hit, Sarah began to lose control. She spun toward Maria, venom in her words. You think you're better than me? Sarah sneered, her voice shaking. You're nothing but the help. I should have never. But Alex cut her off, his voice ice cold. If you ever lay a hand on Maria again, I'll make sure it's the last time. I'm filing for full custody of the children. You can go. Now. There was a tense pause. Sarah glared at Alex, rage filling her eyes, but there was nothing left for her to say. She knew the game was up. Her empire of lies had crumbled. With shaking hands, Sarah grabbed the divorce papers Alex had prepared earlier. She signed them hastily, her face pale with fury and fear. But Alex wasn't done. Pack your things. You have 1 hour. Everything else stays. The car is waiting for you. As Sarah stormed out of the room, slamming the door behind her, a strange calm fell over the house. Alex stood still for a moment, breathing deeply, absorbing the magnitude of the decision he'd just made. This wasn't just about his wife anymore. This was about protecting his children, his family. He turned to Maria, who was standing at the doorway, her face filled with a mixture of relief and uncertainty. I'm sorry, Alex said quietly. I never saw it. I should have seen it sooner. Maria looked at him, her voice soft but steady. You weren't blind, Alex. You just didn't know. They both stood there in silence, the weight of everything finally sinking in. The house was no longer cold, no longer oppressive. There was still so much to rebuild, but it felt like the first step toward healing. A few months later, the Carter mansion looked different. It wasn't just the renovations, the new coat of paint, or the fact that the house felt warmer somehow. It was that things were finally right. The children were safe. Maria was no longer the help. She was part of the family. Alex had started spending more time with his kids, doing things he hadn't had time for before. And it wasn't just the children who were changing. Alex had changed too. The man who once buried himself in his empire now made time for what mattered, his family, his values, and the relationships he had neglected. Maria, too, had begun to flourish. No longer silenced by fear. She had a voice now. And Alex gave her more than just a place in the family. He gave her a future. He established a foundation in her name, Maria's voice, dedicated to helping immigrant workers who had been mistreated, just as she had been. But the question remains, what would you do if you found out everything you knew about someone was a lie? Would you take the hard step of confronting the truth, even if it meant losing everything? Or would you stay silent, hoping things would change on their own? Let us know what you would do in the comments below. And if this story touched you, share it with someone who needs to hear that sometimes the hardest decisions lead to the greatest transformations. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss the next gripping story.